Here. Recording here. But moving the camera. Oh, feed. Hello. Rebecca game. It looks decent. Wow, look at that. Okay. Great. Alright. I'm starting the vlog for writing for my story. I have about 8 topics that I'm going to be going in depth about as I'm working through the mechanics of how things in the universe function, trusty water, as one would have, during the sort of mental / physically written, watch out, excursion. Alright. Things I'm going to be covering here. Some of this, people call that area, I don't refer to these as pseudosciences because they're actually things that have been researched by people who have scientific degrees. That would be that, like, it's not popular science, but it has been researched using the actual scientific method. It's not pseudoscience. Things like the morphic resonance, I'm going to talk about that. I am going to be talking about some really, it's like a booger. It's kind of gross. Alright. I'm talking about wow, human person, I know. Alright, but I'm talking about some multiversal theories, but in the thing that I'm writing, I'm only doing one area of the universe is contained subdomain that is going to have I'm calling them subrealms for now. I have to figure out a better name for them. And that, so you have the edge, which is constricting the limits for where there could be any sort of differentiation from the standard universe. And then all of these places that have been moved across the edge and therefore having the potential to be like kind of offshoots of the central. It is kind of I think it's called the main timeline or whatever. And that there is a area of the universe still full CMB size, but in this is functioning under a series of morphic resonances that kind of function like seasons. I am also going to be including some stuff from electric universe theory, where instead of things which uses a structured plasma approach instead of gravity as the central force that defines larger universal structures like planetary systems. It uses electricity to model that, the movement of electricity, the movement of plasma, to model why things take the forms that they take in the larger structures of space. Things like the Nyaikea or the cosmic web are the byproduct then of electricity, and it's the way that electrical systems gather as opposed to gravitational events. So I'll be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about some variations of transhumanism, which is just the eventual migration of human consciousness into either machine-based consciousness, like things that you see in like Altered Carbon, where they're talking about, or things like when you see it in The Matrix, is another example of transhumanism, where we've kind of made this place that humans inhabit, whether it be mentally or virtually, or we've made artificial constructs that are able to endure across the vast distances of space and the amount of time that it would take to cover that distance. So then we're covering that. I was recently introduced to this thing called geometric Langlands, that is an attempt to bridge the areas of number theory with this more rigid mathematics and things that are based more centrally around things that have a definable numerical set, and harmonic analysis, which is the things that check for things like orbits, which it's more leaning towards the side of relativism and proportion in math, or leaning towards the rigid number structure side of math. And geometric Langlands is a way of bridging those seemingly disparate areas of math together, which is coming together to try to do a unified theory of mathematics. I've decided to not yet focus and add in quantum gravity. I'm going to try to reduce the amount. There is going to be some probabilistic things yet and still, but I'm going to try to reduce the amount by which I rely on using the level of reality is the quantum level to resolve problems. Because I don't necessarily like the way that that's used in media. It seems like it resolves too many things because you hit that probabilistic layer and it's kind of like an anything can happen zone. And to me, it just solves too much of it as a deus ex machina. I also covering encryption as one of the major facets of this. So like the systems where you're having sigils or systems where you're having things that are enchanted, so on and so forth. All of that's going to have mechanics. There are gonna be reasons. There's gonna be references to other actual real ciphers, like the Bignari cipher, which is a version of the autoclave, or if the Voynich is going to be referenced, it'll actually be referenced in the way that you'll actually see the script is a transformed version of the Voynich, something from the Voynich or something that's from the hieroglyphs. It'll actually be from using the translations, and then moving that into a different context. I wanted to actually have a methodology as opposed to just being referenced like just like a random cool thing that's kind of in there. I wanted to actually have its history and the history to actually have context. So working on that. I'm doing 32 archetypes that are going to be based both around the physical implications of the electric universe thing and also the morphic resonance thing. So then all the worlds that I've which I guess I'll go through at some point. I have a map of this, like I drew a physical map. Like you go full Tolkien whenever you do this. You have to go, where is Mordor? What is it next to? How many houses are in Mordor? You have to do that whole thing. So I did do that, and I have the planets and all the stuff laid out on paper. I will lay them out at some point, but I'm also still figuring out which perspectives and which angles to tell the story from. So as not to do that thing where you're just lost in the weeds. Shout out to all Star Trek fans. I'm slowly becoming a Trekkie throughout this process. I was at the Star Wars Star Trek crossroads, and I'm Star Trek because of this. Because you kind of get to a point where you're like, what if I just took one ship and just sent it to the next thing I thought of? And I really do have those days, but I'm going to try to get you a full narrative thing for your Star Wars folks out there that's focused around one group of people, and the group of people never got changes and things happen to them that are a part of one linear thing. I'm going to try to do that for people. But there's a part of me that's I started coming up with all this stuff. Let's just send them everywhere. So I'm doing my best. The archetypal personality matrix is an attempt to refine that down. So what I'm doing is defining from the morphic resonance thing different time periods where different things will be more successful. I have a resonance of flux where for the people who are very dynamic characters, things are going to be much easier for them because it's the time for revolutions and the time for this whole thing to fall and the time for all that. And then there's a time of stasis where those people would struggle. And then the people who are more I'm stuck to my routine and I have my rituals and I have my rites and stuff, those people are going to flourish during the stasis time. And so having that duality is going to help give structure to the narrative, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to pare it down to being just about the characters people are familiar with. I do have stuff to sit on Earth. I am going to be dealing with things from Earth history. I'm going to be dealing with things from Black history. I'm going to be dealing with things covering topics like slavery, covering topics about where in African history, how things could have gone differently had colonialism not happened. I'm going to be covering that sort of deal as well, and I'm also going to be talking about the far future for those had those or when those people inherently make it to space, what that might be covering different parts of Africa and different cultural stuff, and kind of trying to carry that through into space, not necessarily space warfare, but space colonization. So those things are going to be talked about as well, but in order to do that, you got to have a structure. So this is that. This is mostly going to be that video where I'm talking about the structure itself, why those things function the way they do, and how that interplay ties to real physics or ties to real biology, like those sort of things, the ins and outs of the actual technical landscape that is the underpinnings of writing sci-fi fantasy. And then in my eighth one on this list is temporal awareness as opposed to time travel, which is something that I feel like it's really confused. This is gonna be a momentary gripe. Sorry, just Twilight fans. It's the point at which Alice's ability to predict the future can end up feeling to the audience member, like when I watched through that, I felt like it would, like I got deprived of an ending to a degree. So then I'm going to try to do temporal awareness to a point where, yes, there is a level of precognition, but before the event is actually none of the events will be resolved by precognition, so much as there is going to be an alteration that can occur to future events to some degree by people becoming aware of them. I do have limitations already being built in. There are 3 characters in it whose future, one, their ability and access to technology and magic that is more advanced than most people in the in this universe build. Most of their technology and magic is so far ahead of those people that you aren't able to supersede the futures that they were already setting in place. Most characters would not be. So that's going to stop a lot of the future manipulation stuff from happening. And there is an authority that is in charge of preserving a certain amount of past events for the regular physical universe. As far as the Outlands goes, it's kind of whoever wins that day. Because it's like, once you cross the edge, there's so much like unwieldy and large scale, like so many large scale magical things that are going on over there that they kind of all beat each other at a given time, to where it's kind of in this it's kind of in a stasis of its own, but this stasis being caused by a bunch of essential ceasefires, and that side of it is being maintained by that. Like, you'll have I can give an example. I have a planet that's made of sentient water. Every battle that's being fought on that planet already being resolved by the fact that everybody that's ever been on it, made of water. From the outside, if you're looking at it, it just looks like a big old ball of moving water. But there's all those things going on inside of it. There's fights and history and telepathy and oracle this and oracle that. But because everybody that's ever been on it is all made of sentient water, and the whole thing's made of water, none of it's visible. So it's like, it's almost impossible to tell that anything's happened at all. It's that sort of deal across the edge. So that's a planet called Weizakko, which I'll get into later. But a lot of the stuff that's going on across the edge is stuff like that, where it's self-contained, and it's not, because of the way that the edge has been put around it, it's not interacting with anything from the actual physical universe just yet. So then it's resolved in and of itself. And that's one of the working solutions currently. I'm going to get into more about each one of these things, but first I have planning to do and writing to do. So then this is going to be the end of this video, which I'm going to post. And then I will be back to kind of go into further details. Hope everybody's having a wonderful night. More. All right.